Hi, everyone. I'm Elisa Sherman. I'm the CEO of Ellementa, and welcome to Ellementa's Women's Wellness Webinars. We've got a lot coming up for you. So before we get started on today's wonderful webinar, I'm going to have to read this. We've got on May 3rd, Sunday, how to talk to your healthcare provider about cannabis. On Wednesday, the 6th of May, 99 walks that will change your life. It's also about a community called 99 Walks, where women are talking about the walking they're doing on a daily basis. Then on May 10th, we have Cannabis and Moms, a special for Mother's Day. And then on the 13th, we have Herbs and Immunity. So this is not all about cannabis, and today is not actually about cannabis at all. It is about another aspect of wellness, mindfulness, and I am really excited to have Terra LaRock with us today. Hi, Terra.
Hi.
I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that technology is not perfect, and we might end up freezing up a little. One of us might get bumped off, but we'll just keep on going, and we'll try to complete all of this within the next half hour. At the end, or toward the end of this session, Terra has agreed to guide us in a little meditation. So let's get started. I would love some background. We want to get to know you a little bit better, Terra. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I think those of you who did start with us live got to see my son as he barged in. He escaped from the backyard. My husband's currently in the garden with my two little ones. So I have a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. And the littlest one came down the stairs and opened that door, which he's getting so good at. And he was only wearing a shirt, just little naked baby. So thank you, first of all, for your patience. I had to bring him all the way back upstairs. But I feel like we're just in that era now where everybody's at home and you have to have that space and that humor about working from home. Like a lot of my team are moms, and we have kids on our lap during Zoom calls and on our hip during meetings, and that's just kind of the nature of it. But so first and foremost, I'm a mom of two really beautiful kids, and then I'm also a child, family, and school psychologist. That's my background, and I am obsessed with mindfulness. I worked in the public sector for a while, really serving a large refugee population, and I always used mindfulness as a way to work with my students and with my families, but I didn't adopt the practice until I became a mom. And once I found it, I just really found it. Like it was just one of those things that I had heard about and I had used and I had seen it work on others, but I didn't really adopt it into my daily life until I was faced with the battle of my life, which was postpartum depression and OCD, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about. So that experience led me to founding a company called Mindful Mamas, and we just launched a wellness, self-care and meditation app for moms and moms to be called Mindful Mamas, and that's what I do full time, and it's so fun. I love it.
It's a lot of work too, though.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
It is. So talk a little bit, if you would, about your personal experience. I remember you saying that a lot of what you started to do around maternal mental health really launched when you wrote a blog post about your personal experience, and it took off. It resonated with so many women. So give us some background about that aspect of your life.
Yeah, so I've always been very creative. My dad was an artist. And so when I became pregnant with my first child, I picked up a camera, wanted to learn how to just document beautiful moments in every day. And this was back in 2014. It was still, Instagram and social media and influencing wasn't really like a huge thing, but I just started posting online and wanted to write. I just loved writing. And so I made a little makeshift blog in my basement, kind of like where I am now, and started talking about just my experience as a working professional and then what my entrance was like into motherhood. And it was one of those things where I wrote an open letter to women experiencing postpartum depression on my personal blog, and it got republished on Huffington Post. Mm-hmm. And it was just so, I wasn't prepared for what came next. I mean, after that article was published, I had hundreds, if not like 1,000 emails in my inbox from other women around the world, or husbands or partners or moms saying, oh my goodness, like this is me, or this is my best friend, or I took your letter to my doctor because I didn't have the words to explain how I was feeling, and you just gave that to me. And I was so, at that point, still in the thick of my healing. I just felt like for so long I had suffered alone, and I didn't tell a soul. I didn't tell my husband. I didn't tell my best friend. I really felt that shame that happens when you can't like will yourself out of what I was going through. I mean, the depression, I would just sit there and barter with whomever that day, just take it away. I promise I'll do this. Or if this just goes away, I'll be a better person. Or, maybe I'm not even meant to be a mother because this is how I feel and I'm not good enough. And it just was so much of that shame, coupled with the fact that I had studied psychology for 9 years. 9 years of like clinical, real life research and practice. And so to not have the skills to be able to navigate it, I just felt like a fraud in my professional life. And I felt like a bad mom and a bad wife and a bad friend. It just really knocked me out. And so it was almost easier for me to release my thoughts in a blog where I didn't have to actually face anybody. I didn't have to actually look at anybody in the eyes and tell my story. And I just didn't expect for it to be met with so many Me Too's. And once I got that validation that there were so many other women that were out there suffering, I was mad. I was so mad. I was like, how can we thrive as women and mothers in this world if this is how motherhood is treated? Like, people talk to me about the pregnancy. People talk to me about the birth. No one ever talked to me about the huge transition of motherhood. And I just felt so almost just like that was the emotion. I was angry. I was angry with society. So that kind of kicked off my interest in maternal mental health and wellness and saying like, okay, if there is all these women feeling the same way I am, and even if your motherhood doesn't come with a diagnosis, it's still life-changing, altering, really intense, so beautiful, but so hard. So that's really what catapulted me into wanting to educate not only myself, but gain the tools and the resources and the reach that I could to make sure that I was on the right side of policy change and that I was standing up for a better motherhood for my daughter when she gets older. Like, I just think about her too. So that's really where my passion comes in. And I'm so eager and excited. I wake up every day just elated to talk about this because mindfulness really was the practice that it saved my life.
Well, let's dive into that mindfulness, because people hear mindfulness and they're like, what in the world is that? Is that meditation? Well, yeah, I'm not into meditation, or meditation is hard, or not just for me. And yet mindfulness is for everybody, and not just for moms, of course. Talk to us a little bit about what is mindfulness? What does it mean to you? And in general, what does it mean?
Sure. So yeah, it's one of those buzzwords that you hear people say, like, be more mindful, practice mindfulness. And I just remember thinking, like, I was already such a busy bee in my mind. I tend to be on the more anxious side. So I'm constantly on like the hamster wheel where if I'm not busy or productive, I feel like I'm not doing enough. And I didn't really know how to just be in my life. Like, I just would fill my calendar and be involved in everything that I possibly could be. And I didn't really know what mindfulness was. And so I would go to yoga classes, and, at the end, when they tell you like to sit and to just still your mind, I felt like that was a direct invitation to my brain to do the complete opposite. It was like, okay, you're supposed to still your mind. Mine is going to ramp up. I'm going to do my to-do list. I'm going to think about all the things I didn't get done at work today and all the things I have to do at home and what my life is going to look like, when I maybe daydream. And so for that, for me to really, I'm so sorry, to step in.
It happens. Oh, by the way, I'll take this moment to say, if anyone has any questions right now, if you're attending live on Zoom, then feel free to type it into the chat box, and we'll be happy to address some of those in a little bit. Okay, back to mindfulness.
Mindfulness. So that's a perfect example of life. Okay, let me back up. Life in general pulls you in 100 different ways. Like, everything is constantly vying for your attention. Like, my phone just went off. It's hooked to my computer. So there I'm getting like 2 pings from the universe saying like, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. And it pulls me out of what I was doing or the present moment. It just really starts to kind of build on top of each other. And then all of a sudden you're trying to do 100 things at once. And what mindfulness does is it takes you out of autopilot and back into yourself, back into your environment, back into where you are. And it's that stillness, and it's just that awareness of kind of zooming in to yourself and what's going on around you that's really grounding. And so mindfulness is really noticing when you've been completely disconnected. Like, how many times, I don't know, you took a shower in the last couple of days, probably, right? Maybe a little longer because we're in quarantine life. But do you remember like putting the shampoo on your hands? Do you remember washing your hair or what the towel felt like when you got out of the shower? If you don't, that's completely normal, but that's just an example of kind of being on autopilot, where you do these things habitually, where you're not really taking moments to check in, like, and find the beauty of that shower, find the enjoyment of the water. And for mindfulness, for me, because I tend to be so busy anyways, it was something that just unlocked my world and showed me that I didn't have to necessarily be that person in the yoga class that could sit there, like this, and close my eyes and not think about anything like for 20 minutes. That just, for me then, did not fit my life. And so mindfulness for me is just finding these little sips of self-care, these little moments of intimacy where you either zoom in or you zoom out, and you notice what your body feels like. You notice where you're holding tension. You notice the sounds around you. You notice your breath. And just by taking those micro moments to notice what's going on, all of a sudden the layers of stress and anxiety or just fear or busyness kind of start to shift away from you, and you really start to notice what's good. Or maybe you notice what's not good, and you can sit with that without trying to run away from it. You can really sit with it and say, wow, I see you. Like, there's anger here, and how can I love my anger and accept it and sit with it so I can process it in a healthy way. And that's really what mindfulness did for me, is it gave me the awareness that I was depressed, that I needed help, that I didn't have to live this way, that those thoughts that I was having weren't the truth. Beliefs really are thoughts that you think over and over and over, where they're just a thought, but you think them over and over and over, and all of a sudden they form into a belief. And so how can you learn to work with your thoughts so they don't become beliefs that you don't want, that you don't need, that don't serve you, that don't allow you to be your most authentic self? And I think when I learned that I didn't have to always follow my thoughts where they went or believe them, or even, just notice them, when I was allowing myself to just notice them without attaching on to them, my life unlocked. And so that was a really long explanation into what mindfulness is. But like I said, I'm so excited and I'm so passionate about it. You asked me that question and I'm sorry. I will go.
No, don't ever apologize. Don't ever apologize. That was really, really helpful. And a few times you might not be able to tell because I have glasses on, but I really teared up because it resonated very deeply with me. The idea of attaching to a belief that often is not even grounded in reality. I mean, everyone has their opinion of what reality is, but if we tend to have very little negative voices in our head, most likely a lot of that is not real.
Oh, yeah.
And we tend to be hard on ourselves. We tend to just latch on to things that we've done wrong as opposed to right. And so a lot of what you said really rang true for me. I do see a quick question here about mindfulness, and then I want us to get to your app. I want us to show your app, and then take a few moments to do a little guided meditation with you. So Karen asks, do you have any pointers or suggestions for trying to encourage a husband or partner to learn or embrace some mindfulness practices?
So that is such a good question. I really struggled with this in my own personal life. Like, my husband's form of self-care is running. Like, he could run 10 miles. When we first started dating, I tried running because he loved it. So I tried it. I hated it. I hated every moment of it. Like, it doesn't matter how long I trained for. I remember at one point I threw a 3-year-old tantrum, stomping my feet, telling him I will never do this again. And he kind of laughed and he accepted it, and he never asked me again to run. However, I've done the same thing with him with mindfulness. I made him do 7 days of mindfulness with me every single day just to see like how he felt after. And he felt great. He was like, yeah, I've noticed I'm, not as hard on myself, or like I'm starting to like see some like really beautiful details in my surroundings, and this is really nice. But then that was kind of it. And I noticed like the more I pushed, the more he would get upset with me. And so really what I tell others is you just have to embody what you need for yourself, and the ripple effect will occur in your relationship. You will possibly be less reactionary in your conversations and more responsive when you're communicating with your husband. And you can come at it from more of like a calmer angle. Like, sometimes I'll say, hey, I'm going to try out this meditation. Would you like to sit with me? And have no attachment to what happens next. If he says yes, then I'm like, okay, that's awesome. I can't wait to share this experience with you. If he says no, I have to really try to let it go and remember that I'm on my own path and he's on his. And my kids, same thing. Like, but I notice that when I talk about it, or when I do it, or even in the moment, I'll be with my husband and maybe we'll start to like butt heads a little. And I'll say like, Perry, I'm going to step away for a second, and I'm just going to take a couple deep breaths because I don't like how I'm responding to you right now. And that modeling for him, I've seen him adopt some of the things that I've learned through my own practice, which has been so neat to see. And even in my kids are like, they're the best reminders of presence and just learning how to be completely content with what you have and where you are.
I remember one of the interviews that you've done, you talked about breathing together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a very interesting practice, that you don't have to say, hey, let's meditate, or hey, let's be mindful together, but just, hey, let's pause for a moment and breathe together. And, Davia had a question about suggestions on being mindful with children. So you mentioned your kids, and she says, I feel like I'm always rushing them to the next thing instead of letting them smell the flowers. What kind of tips do you have?
Yeah. So I actually got this. So Carina is the voice, the head of mindfulness on Mindful Mama. She's the best voice, and she's just like my little co-creator in all of this. And we both have kids around the same age, and both of us were talking about some of our biggest struggles with our kids. And it was allowing our preschoolers to put their own dang shoes on. Like, oh my goodness, it takes forever. Like, just to let them do it. Like, you just want to hurry up and get them in the car and go where you need to go. And so both of us actually started taking that as an opportunity where we noticed that we're rushing to start the process like 5 minutes earlier than we typically would, and to tell our child, okay, you put on your shoes, mommy's going to go outside for a second. I can still see you, but mommy's going to go outside for a second, and I'm going to take a moment for myself. And it, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 5 minutes. Sometimes I have to peek my head in and kind of guide them to the next step. But I notice that I don't start to build and my energy doesn't fall off onto them. And I give them the space for independence, and I give them the space to transition kind of in their own time with a few little nudges. But then I am outside noticing how beautiful it is that day. Or, like maybe it's freezing and I'm noticing like, where I'm holding tension when I'm shivering. And it just is those little opportunities that you can take what would be a power struggle and release a little and say, I'm going to take this moment for me. And that might just be, sitting here and scanning from one side of the room to the other and picking out 4 beautiful things that you see, 4 things that like spark joy for you, or that you remind you of a memory that you hold dearly to you. And when I started doing that, and like I said, just incorporating these little pivots in throughout my day, then I started craving the longer meditations. Then I started craving the longer space of silence. And I didn't always have to feel like I was needing to fill any of my to-dos or my brain with things to just keep me occupied. So I hope that helped.
Yeah, I think that was really helpful. Let's show your app. I have it.
Okay.
I have it up on my phone. Let's see. It's a little bit tough to see usually, phone to screen, but it's a beautiful app first and foremost. Yours looks good. Yours looks really good. Yeah, guided meditations. Talk about some of the features of your app.
Yeah. So, first of all, I can't believe that this is here.
It's real.
It's like my 3rd baby. We've been working on this, my team and I, for this has been years in the making. So what really differentiates Mindful Mamas from other mindfulness or meditation apps that are out there is we really believe that motherhood is not this one size fits all. We think of motherhood as a developmental stage called matrescence, where, Eliza, what you need with your teenagers is a lot different than what I need with my preschooler or my little one. However, we both still need our cup filled. And so how do we speak to that mom in that particular phase of their development in their motherhood journey in a way that speaks just to them? And so one thing that we did was we divided up the motherhood stages into these categories, and I think I can show you, but you can see from trying to conceive all the way up through all grown up, you can select where you are in your motherhood journey and get certain content catered and offered up to you to where you are in your stage. So that's one way that differentiates us. And then another way is while guided meditation. So let me go back on this. So guided meditations is more the formal practice. It's more of the, sitting down for an extended period of time, even if it's just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and being guided through a process where you're tuning into your awareness channels, whatever those might be for that particular meditation. Mindfulness is taking the skills that you learn off of the mat and into your real life. So the things I was talking about that I just do throughout my day to bring me back to the present moment over and over again with compassion and just understanding for when I'm not living mindfully. And so we knew that busy moms were going to say, I don't have time for that. Like, I don't have time for 10-minute guided meditations. And one thing I will tell moms that are listening, do it in the shower, start there. Like I love shower meditations because you are by yourself some of the time. Or, on your commute when the world kind of opens back up, or, right before bed or in the morning. So you can find the time to do it. And I think once you start to do it, you actually crave that. But we wanted more smaller bite-sized things that you could do throughout your day. So we have this pillar called mini pauses, and this is the most fun thing ever to play with, but you can pick where you are in your day and say, like, we're at work, for example, click on the button, and then there's all these little 1 to 3 minute exercises that you can do that either explain how to do it through text, or you can push the be guided and be guided, which is really neat. So yeah, I mean, we also have mantras that you can record your own if you want to. And
I like that.
We have breathing techniques, and you can filter if you need like energy, you can do like a rejuvenating breath, or if you need relaxation, you can do relaxing breath. You can kind of just scroll through it like little cards. Everything about this app, when we went to the developers, we said we want women to feel like they're entering into a virtual sanctuary. We want women to look at this app and be like, oh my gosh, I see myself here. I can really see that I have a place here, and that my needs are being met. And, already we've gotten questions about if we're going to start a kids series. And the answer to that, it's hard to say, because we love our littles and we love teaching them mindfulness, but we're so quick to want to buy things and do things for our kids. Like there isn't a lot that's just sacred for us, just sacred for the moms. Yeah. And so while we do have Mommy and Me meditations on the app, we really want women to focus on themselves too. And of course, if the kids are around, invite them to do it with you. And it's really fun to introduce to your family what mindfulness is and what Mommy's doing when she clicks her phone and she hears Carina guide them through. But yeah, it's a really special project that I am just so over the moon, just really in awe that this is out here, especially during this time when women need it so badly.
Yeah, it's so true. And I have to say, it is a very beautiful app. And when I talk about it, I tell people, and it makes me cry, but in a good way.
Yeah.
It really does quiet you down to the point that you end up allowing yourself to feel what is really underneath all that busyness.
The layers. Yeah.
The layers. And it does it in a very gentle way. And so it is like a sanctuary. It really is. And that's an amazing achievement for a piece of technology. So kudos to you. I think it's time for you to actually demonstrate what this is like.
Sure.
And we're going to take a couple of minutes. If those of you who are listening in live would like to join us, feel free. And if you're watching this on video, even better, feel free to do that anytime and replay, or of course download the app at app.mindfulmamasclub.com. There, put in that plug. Yeah. We'll plug it again right after this. All right,
it's actually it's www.mindfulmamasapp.com.
Oh,
that's short. Yeah, that's the short one.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a couple that redirect, because we're fancy like that in case you type it in wrong. But I think the easier one to remember is mindfulmamasapp.com.
All right, perfect. And let's get going.
Okay, so I will preface this by saying that while I wrote a lot of the content, I'm not the one that typically guides. Carina, my co-founder, usually does that. However, I have led a lot of meditation and mindfulness in the past. I'm just a little rusty. So bear with me, we're going in this together. If this is your first time, that's totally okay. And, just allow whatever happens. Don't have any expectations. It's not going to be very long. And here we go. So I want you to first just settle into your seat. maybe see if both feet can be firmly planted on the floor if you're sitting in a chair, or if you're sitting on the ground, just sit in a way that feels really comfortable for you. And just in this moment, say to yourself, think to yourself, I have nothing to do. I have nowhere to be. I have nothing to do, and I have nowhere to be. See if you can believe that just for this moment. And while you soften your gaze, or maybe slightly close your eyes, relax any tension that you feel in your jaw. Maybe roll out your shoulders a couple times while you continue to tell yourself, for this moment, I have nothing to do and I have nowhere to be. And when you find that your body is settling, go ahead and start to tune in to the sounds that you hear in the room. Maybe you hear your kids off in the distance. They're in another room playing while you're listening to this. Maybe you hear the sound of your air conditioning or your heater turn on. Maybe you hear birds outside your window. Just go ahead and for a moment, notice what sounds you hear and take it in. And going from outside, let's zoom in a little to go inside and notice what your breath sounds like right now. There's no need to change the tempo of your breath unless that feels really good for you. Just take a minute to use about 10% of your energy, not a lot of effort here, to just hear what your inhale sounds like. And then hear what your exhale sounds like. Take a couple more breaths, just noticing the sounds of your breath. And if it helps you keep concentration, you can always put one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. And while you tune into the sounds, maybe you also start to feel what part of your body is moving as you breathe. Oftentimes it's the chest, or it's the belly, or it's both. And now it's okay if your mind has already wandered away from your breath. Our minds do that. They're meant to think. See if you can just touch that thought and come back with self-compassion, without judgment, without any negative self-talk around you being distracted. It's perfectly okay. Come back again and again and again to your breath. Breathing in, hearing that beautiful sound of life-giving oxygen, and then letting it go. Hearing that sound of release. We'll do 5 more breaths just this way. I have nowhere to be and nothing to do. Right now, I'm breathing. And when you're ready, you can softly open your eyes and maybe give your shoulders a little roll. You can shake out your hands if you need to. And just notice how you feel. Do you feel a little more grounded? Do you feel a little more held by the chair below you? Maybe you feel a little more anxious, and that's telling you that there's some energy there that needs to be worked out, and that's okay too.
Very nice. I would say my word was grounded. Right before you said, do you feel grounded? I was already thinking grounded.
Mm-hmm.
which is a really good and often very foreign feeling for those of us who are constantly on the go. I mean, even sheltering at home, being in a limited space, some of us stay very, very busy. And in a way, sometimes it's an avoidance of what is happening around you.
Absolutely.
But getting back in touch, I think, is strengthening and empowering.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that right there, 2 minutes can completely shift your whole day, your whole mindset. Mm-hmm. I do that sometimes when I'm doing dishes. I'll just sit there and do exactly what I led you through, or I listen to the chaos sometimes around me. I mean, sometimes it's not that pleasant. My kids are fighting, or my husband's out there mowing the lawn, and it's not like this Zen whole experience. But I know that my life is only as good as I allow it to be. And so even in those moments of chaos, if I can come back to myself and come back to what's happening around me, I get to choose to have those moments for myself and to love my life exactly as it is. And that's powerful. And that's what I want to give to moms.
Well, I thank you so much for sharing this time with us. I look forward to seeing what else you end up doing to help moms. I think the app is incredibly useful, particularly now. Tell us again how people can find your app and how they can find you.
Yeah, so you can head directly to your app store, whatever app store you have on your phone. So I have an iPhone, so I go to the Apple App Store and I just type in Mindful Mamas, and it's MAMAS. That's how we spell mamas. It's really cute. We have some women that practice with us from Canada or from Australia or from just different parts of the world. And they say, like, even when I type in MUM, like mindful mums, it still pulls up, and that's so neat.
Good. Good.
Yeah, it shows we're starting to gain some being recognized in the App Store. But Mindful Mamas, you can go directly there and download it and try it for 7 days before you subscribe to either the monthly or the annual subscription to unlock all of the content for as long as you want. And then you can also check out our Instagram. We're Mindful Mamas Club on Instagram. We do a lot of service on there and give a lot of really good nuggets throughout the week to help you live more intentionally and to fill up your cup. And then, like you said, the landing page for the app where you can learn more about it if you're not ready to download it quite yet and try your free trial is mindfulmamasapp.com.
Excellent. Good. And I just wanted to thank everyone again for tuning in. This is an Ellementa Women's Wellness webinar. If you want to see who else is going to be on these webinars and what other topics we'll be covering, go to ellementa.com/events. Thanks again, Terra, for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for everybody who joined and tuned in. Let me know if you have any questions, and we're always accessible. We can't wait to just get to know you more. So thank you so much.